The following is a presentation of the ForceCenter podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is a ForceCenter podcast feed. I'm Ken Napzok.
I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
And I'm Jennifer Landa.
And welcome to our show in which we break news from a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, which is also in our galaxy and often here in Burbank. At least today's news, kind of, and Manhattan Beach. We got some news to get to. We got some awards to hand out. We got a great look into Star Wars past with an upcoming anniversary from this week in Star Wars history. But before we get to all that fun stuff, we're going to remind you, we're going to get the business out of the way here. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. A little bit later, we'll have our ForceCenter Recommends, an audiobook we think you should try out on us. And it is one of those homework assignment books. One of those books we'll be reviewing soon, diving in. But that is kind of, well, we have an update, Joseph, right?
Yes, our next offer is now nothing. I joke. We want to have an update on the offer we've been making for a while on the podcast. Inside Editions is a publisher of a ton of great Star Wars books, as well as other pop culture books. We love Inside Editions. We've loved having this deal with them. But right now, they're in the process of changing up their affiliate program. So the link that we've been sharing for quite a while now, insideeditions.com/discount/FC35, is no longer working. Like we said, we still love the company and we recommend their books. We'll probably talk about them and we'll let you know as soon as a new affiliate program is up and running. So that is the information on that.
Yeah, thanks for a couple of ForceCenter friends out there kind of pointing out that they were trying to use the link to get the discount and all that stuff. And because of that, we were able to dig in a little bit more. Joseph got the information that's valuable to us and all of you, and we'll update you like Joseph said. All right, Life Star Wars Adventures. Jen, get in here. I have a boring one. How was your weekend?
Mine was kind of boring too. I was like, what did I do this weekend? I had 2 sick children, so not too much happening in the world of Star Wars. I'm trying to think. I started really studying the Grand Inquisitor's head, the various shapes of the Palins' heads, looking at Tion Madon, looking at how they created that and the Revenge of the Sith, behind the scenes featurettes. And it's just it's really fascinating. And it just made me realize, I just want to be on the sets now. I really would love somebody to make a real kind of, not guerrilla style, but really be in the trenches with things as they're happening, as they're making these decisions to for Rupert Friend's prosthetic head or makeup or whatever they're doing. I want to know the process behind that.
You figured out what is in Tion Madon's head, like what it's made of, how it got so high?
Yeah. So, actor Bruce Spence, the man who played Tion Madon, he naturally has a long and thin face, but then they used a latex mask to cover his entire face. It's really incredible. And they just kind of built it up. And it was based on a sculpture that George had made. And George came into the workroom when they were kind of designing the mask. And he very clearly, he's like, no, I want it to have ridges up and down his face. He's drawing on he's like, may I? And the sculptor says, sure, here you go. So there's George drawing lines up and down this mask. It's just incredible.
Wow. That is so great.
Yeah, so cool.
I love that.
So that was my excitement for the weekend.
That's good excitement.
Yeah, that's some fun when you can research Star Wars as a life task. It's pretty good.
Exactly. That's true.
Joseph, sir, please save us from the boredom.
I don't know if I can quite handle that task. I've had a good busy week of lots of fun creative work, and that's always fun to mix that with Star Wars. Talking about Star Wars so much does help me in my own kind of creative journeys, both behind the scenes and thinking about the kind of stuff that I want to create, all that kind of great stuff. But then my Star Wars adventures were kind of accidental. I talked about this a little bit on our Clone Wars report. My wife has dance rehearsals on Tuesday nights that started in the last month or so. So now Tuesday night is my movie night. I can watch whatever I want. Because there's some stuff that Sarah's not a big horror fan, that kind of thing, or sometimes a movie I'm not sure that she'd be into that I want to check out first. So I watched THX 1138, which I've seen bits and pieces of. I've read all about, and I had that like, yeah, no, I get it. Which was pompous of me, because then I watched it, and of course, there's a difference between knowing and experiencing. And it was so great to see this early Lucasfilm that was at one part like so familiar when it comes to Star Wars. All these, great Star Wars themes about authoritarianism and the organic versus the rigid, and the ultimate path to freedom is, of course, a fast car. So there's these things that, like, that's so Star Wars, that's so George Lucas, but the tone of it is more like David Lynch, 70s, dark sci-fi, dystopia. So it was fun to see something that was so familiar and yet so different. And then my wife and I have also just started rewatching the Indiana Jones movies. So the week before last, we watched Raiders of the Lost Ark on Sunday, and then we didn't discuss it. And we're just like, should we watch Temple of Doom this Sunday? So we did, as we're recording, watch Temple of Doom last night. And that was fun to just be reminded. So much to talk about of Temple of Doom. I know there are things that people don't like for many different reasons. I will asterisk that, note that, I know that. But for me, that's such a reminder of just like that adventure serial. How important that is to Star Wars. And Temple of Doom, whatever else you think of it, it really is like one problem to the next, to the next, to the next. It's just go, go, go. So it was weird because I was like getting ready for this and like, did I have any Star Wars adventures? Like, will you watch these two movies that are not Star Wars, but are deeply, deeply related to Star Wars? So that was kind of a fun Star Wars adventure.
And you got to roll around Club Obi-Wan. I still love that sequence too.
Oh yeah, no, that's great. That's great. So Ken, my exciting adventure was I watched two movies. So I bet yours is just as exciting as that.
No, I watched some documentaries this weekend. I had a chance to do that. Grace is out of town, and I had it's much like you. Again, just like, all right, cool. I can invest in some things that normally maybe I wouldn't, because she's not interested in and that kind of stuff. And we share the TV remote pretty well, to be clear. But did that. But on Sunday, I have my tax appointments coming up. So Sunday, I did the pre-tax research, pulled the notes, going to QuickBooks, all those adult things. And I felt I was in the part of Phantom Menace no one wants to be in, which is the taxation and trade routes. I just felt so lost in that. And it was an all day, it was a couple hour. I'll get this one. I'll have a little snack and I'll knock this out in the afternoon. 9 o'clock, I was still like, oh, can I write off those comic books as well? Research. It is indeed. So I felt like I was in that corner of Star Wars no one thinks is fun, but is necessary.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's kind of important to our lives, and if not thrilling, definitely stressful. Like Obi-Wan Kenobi sensed something's not right.
Something's not right. And it really did rob me of some direct Star Wars time, because I was going to get ahead of some of our Clone Wars report watching, which we got the great arc with the big great arc with Maul, Savage Opress, and Palpatine, and Kenobi, and Satine, the season 5 stuff. And I couldn't get to it because I was still writing off expenses, which will hopefully include Disney Plus, in which I'm trying to watch the Clone Wars on. So
there you go.
It all comes together.
It all does. Well, we've got some news to get to, and two big stories that we're going to cover here today. This one kind of popped up during the weekend. It's always so weird now even to track where the news comes from. Sometimes, like, is it a tweet? Is it a rumor scoop or Hollywood Reporter? And then sometimes it's 3 days old by the time I pay attention to it. This is one of those stories, but I'm excited to report Christopher Lloyd is making his way into the Star Wars galaxy. The Hollywood Reporter revealed that the veteran actor will be in the upcoming 3rd season of The Mandalorian in a guest starring role. Of course, no details on the role have been revealed, but let's dream it up. Let's speculate, just speculate on what this could be. What do we want Christopher Lloyd to be doing in the Mandoverse? And just maybe some general thoughts on Christopher Lloyd. Jennifer, we'll start with you.
I would love to see him in a partnership with Pelly. Those two screwball comedians coming together. That would be obviously very, very fun. But what I also think might be fun, and what I could see actually happening, is him being a character that's very likable, who we think is an ally of Mando, but then who double crosses him.
Ooh,
I think that would be really interesting. And they said guest starring. So we are assuming that he's going to be in multiple episodes, or at least he has a big enough role. He's not just a co-star where you come in one line and then you're out. And I looked on IMDb and he's listed in the first episode. So right out of the gate, we're going to get his character. But it's exciting. It's really exciting that he's coming into the Mandoverse.
I do love that. That's some great, guest star and co-star and all those SAG titles that you got to pay attention to, or it could just be a general term here. Joseph, thoughts on Christopher Lloyd himself and maybe what he might be doing in the Mando show?
Yeah, I love that he's here. He just has such gravitas and such, history. And I love that if you're trying to kind of cast him to his roles, he's got an interesting mix of roles, right? He's like kind of most famous for the, lovable but weird, befuddled scientist, from Back to the Future, arguably most known. It's, but so you can kind of go with that of like, is he going to play, some great Star Wars scientist? Like the Clone Wars animated series has a bunch of dangerous scientists who invent bad things and have weird accents, right?
That's so true.
So I'd love to see that on screen, like a scientist who's developed like a dangerous machine to burrow to the core of Mandalore or something like that. But he's also got such a history of comedy, as Jennifer said, but also like he's played some good villains. He is legitimately scary. People kind of, I think, poke fun of it, but in Star Trek 3 is the Klingon villain. He's legitimately scary. Judge Doom and Roger Rabbit, he's the main villain, right?
Right.
So I'd be interested to see him in some sort of villainous role as well, like some not physically doing the action himself, maybe because he's 83, but some like warlord, living in some ruins, who betrays Din Djarin, that kind of thing. Last wild thing, I don't think it's going to be this, but I kind of almost any older charismatic actor, I want them to play an Imperial dignitary or a Sith, an ancient Sith fanboy. That's what I want him to be.
See, if this had been a casting for Andor, I'd be right there with you. This is a dignitary. This is absolutely Imperial dignitary.
Yeah. So I think they've been doing such an interesting job of kind of matching up actors to some amount of expectation when it's an actor that we know. So I'm so curious which direction, because there's so many directions you could go with that with Christopher Lloyd. Which will it be?
Yeah. Yeah, no, you both have pointed out such great things. And I myself consider myself a big Christopher Lloyd fan. And especially in the sense of, yes, obviously Back to the Future, like you said, Joseph, what he's most known, and for our generation, it's kind of where maybe a lot of us first learned about him. He was my first favorite actor that I would tell people. He was also one of the first actors, which I learned there's a thing called actors, where I remember seeing Taxi reruns. And I think my mom or dad was like, oh, that's Doc Brown from Back to the Future. And I was like, no, he's an old man. Like, what are you talking about? And it confused me, but also just intrigued me. And then, a lot of his work, Roger Rabbit, great example. Yeah, then I saw that Star Trek 3 in the theaters and was terrified. Young. I was also part of the generation that Temple of Doom. My mom probably wrote the letters that helped get it. It made PG-13 from then on. She was not happy about that one there. So I love Christopher Lloyd, but also, so one of my favorite movies is Dream Team, which is a comedy. It's definitely a late 80s comedy, but from like 88, 89, Michael Keaton, Stephen Furst, Peter Boyle, and Christopher Lloyd as patients from a mental hospital who get lost and stranded in New York. And it's kind of Lorraine Bracco's in it as well. Funny, again, very, very late 80s to be clear, but he is so good in that because there's some moments of real sadness, of real pain beneath the comedy. So I would love to see him tap into that side. You've given great examples of many different things he's done. I'd love a quiet moment with Din. Not that Lloyd's like a space wizard in that kind of hero trope for Din, but someone who's got information about him, someone who maybe sets him on more specific part of his mission, whatever it might be, the big overriding goal in season 3. Does that mean he's a Mando? Does it mean he knows Mando history or know where those waters are that he's got to go redeem himself in? Something like that. There's a lot of ways to go. Comedy, menacing, villain. I want some of those quiet, sadder, poignant moments, maybe. But
I think it'd be great as that. One of the other things that I love him in is Cheers. He features prominently in breaking Sam and Diane up for the first time as a tortured artist.
Yes.
Wow.
And he would be great there. I also am wondering how soon articles will come out claiming that he's playing Jorah Saboth, or however you pronounce that name from Heir to the Empire.
It also,
oh man,
it's funny you say that, because I started laughing thinking, well, remember when but there was that conversation about Max von Sydow being Boba Fett, old Boba Fett in Force Awakens, which was wrong on many levels, many levels. But I laughed about that. That would be so funny. Yes. He's Talon Card aged.
I can't even believe I forgot Clue. Professor Plum.
Professor Plum.
Oh, God. And he was really unlikable in that role. He's great, but his character is not likable. So, yeah, God, what a wide variety of roles he's played over the years. My gosh.
Which reminds me that we now also need Michael McKean in Star Wars, too.
Oh, he's one of my faves.
Oh, I that could be happening as we speak, and it just hasn't broken yet.
Make it so.
That they're shooting right now. The show's still shooting out there in Manhattan Beach. Who knows? Very well. He could be a droid. He could be voice some kind of animal. I saw one tweet of what if he's voicing Grogu?
Oh my gosh,
that made me laugh. Great Scott did. The Mandalorian, you both have touched on here. The Mandalorian has established this kind of year-to-year tradition, and we can throw Book of Boba Fett in that as well, of fun, almost nostalgic castings, and maybe even more importantly, out-of-the-box choices for a lot of these performers. And Joseph, you're right. A lot of them to expectation. Michael Biehn coming in, and he was a Michael Biehn character. Amy Sedaris is doing kind of a wild, almost sketch comedy like character that I think has grown on me and grown on a lot of people, but just worked their way into the universe pretty well. David Pasquesi comes in and is very much doing a comedy role in Book of Boba Fett. What do you both think about that here, Jennifer? This idea of are we enjoying these castings? Is it kind of fun to think Michael McKean, could he be in it? Who else could be in Star Wars we haven't thought about?
The casting on these shows are genius because they're pairing great character actors with great roles, right? I mean, you have Natalia Tena from a lot of things, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, who's playing the crazy twee, as they called her, right? Or Clancy Brown as Berg, or obviously Amy Sedaris, Carl Weathers, Nick Nolte. I mean, the list goes on and on. And I think what these actors do so well is we can go, oh, I know that person, but they don't detract from the story like an A-lister celebrity would, and they're able to make the most of their scenes. So they make their scenes memorable, but they also fit the tone of the show. Yeah. And I also think that it's very intentional that they're picking a lot of comedic actors because it brings a little bit of life to the show. But as we all know, comedians can be, comedic actors can be very good at being serious and playing dark roles and getting to the depth when they need to. So, because comedy is much harder to do than drama, in my opinion. So it's just genius, the whole thing. And it just makes it so fun to watch, in my opinion. I mean, I want to do an actor studio on this because every choice is so good. No, you're bringing in some names I kind of even forgot or overlooked just because now they're just part of their, Clancy Brown, of course, is doing so well, and I just loved him in the new Dexter. He's got a long career, and he's obviously the voice of in Savage Opress, doing that. He's got a place in Star Wars, but just it was beyond just fun. It was it worked in a different way. Yeah, great stuff. Joseph, your thoughts on these castings here?
Yeah, no, I think Jennifer makes a lot of great points of they all have this great splashy sort of press. Like we're talking about Christopher Lloyd because he's Christopher Lloyd and we can think of a million roles. So they have that sort of stunt casting in terms of press. But then in terms of the actual show, they just bring all of this skill and gravitas, I don't think it has to just be older actors, but that's what a lot of it has been is older actors, right? And they have chops in comedy, action, drama, and can just really, really bring this depth that goes along with the silliness, right? That we've talked so much about, he's an Ugnaught. He's the little pig man. But great performance by Misty Roses in the body. And then Nick Nolte bringing that weight, so you're getting the theme of the first season from the pig man.
Yeah.
And then I think also they've done such a great job of either leaning into the cultural knowledge of the actor or maybe even pushing against it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like Werner Herzog, right? The line,
Yes.
"Can I offer you a libation to celebrate the closing of our shared narrative?" Like that line would have been funny from anyone, but that's the kind of thing that like you ask Werner Herzog, what the meaning of his film is, and he says something kind of oddly structured but beautiful and weird like that. So you're kind of leaning into it, but it's also weird because he wouldn't normally be there. Michael Biehn, that you knew exactly who that character is because we've lived with him as a seasoned, brutal fighter for decades. Even Bill Burr's got that. Like, what's Bill Burr doing in Star Wars? Where ultimately what he does, particularly in the second season, is that character is like Bill Burr's actual comedy, somewhere between a realist and a cynic, challenging other people's points of view and just poking and poking and poking, going, "Why do you think that? Why do you think that?"
Right.
With a Boston accent.
With a Boston accent.
Exactly. It works somehow.
And then I think, Ken, you and I have talked about this a lot. You really pointed out the power of Danny Trejo's real life, but really taking the image of Danny Trejo is this cultural, like, he is the badass, right? He can, break somebody's spine by snarling. He's a badass, right? So to have him in that scene that is about, that's not all that I am. That's not all the Rancor is. That's not all you have to be. Boba Fett is both playing into our cultural relationship with him, but also, giving us a different point of view that can kind of only come if you're starting from that point of view and surprise us by twisting what we expect of that character.
Oh, yeah. No, well said. Well said all around. And yeah, I had kind of the same note that you did, Joseph. Jen, this is something that's come up a lot in the last couple of years, where just often these castings I put are actors of a certain age. And,
Right.
as I rapidly approach some of those ages, it feels like Christopher Lloyd's 83. I like it. It isn't just about that. I'm sure you could find some younger actor that we hadn't thought about or something. But I just love that it's performers you wouldn't put on any dream list, right? Like going into Mando season 1. Maybe now we can even play around with that. We just apparently put Michael McKean on the list too, as we should. But it's I just love that, and it allows me to celebrate these performers in a way I never thought possible. I never in a million years would have said, "Oh, Jennifer Beals would be great in Star Wars. They should cast her." I wouldn't have thought that.
Right.
I think about Garza Fwip's speech often. I really do. I'll see a meme will pop up because it's a very memeable character, right? Memorable, memeable character. And I just remember her delivery of that monologue. Everything about it, Ticker Santon, is just something that got me on another level. And you only get that because Favreau in the casting office and Filoni, whoever made the decisions, were like, it would be fun. See Jennifer Beals, who doesn't even really know Star Wars. Let's put her in Star Wars and see what she can do in this galaxy. And that's what I just keep enjoying season to season, and even episode to episode at times.
And one of the things that I think that helps that these actors are of a certain age is, and they're great character actors, they're going to come with a choice, right? You know that they're going to come with something, and it might be a little far off, and I'm sure that the directors can work with them if they need to tone it back or whatever, but they're never going to just come in and just try and fit it. They're just going to come in wild and risky. And I think that that's really exciting to watch for us as fans. It's what makes each character on this show so distinct. And a lot of times with younger actors, especially, they want to give a performance that they think people want from them, if that makes sense. So they don't go big. They don't make these wild specific choices because they're afraid to. Obviously, we have some exceptions with some fantastic young actors, but it tends to happen more as you've been working for as long as these actors have. They know their stuff. They know what they can lean into or really push, and it's so fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think also like so many of them probably obviously have had great experiences, but they've also had not great experiences. And given that all of the sort of information about what it's like to work on Mandalorian Book of Boba Fett is a sense of play, right? That you're not coming in and doing some kind of scene where it's like, we're going to do 87 takes and I need you to get this inflection exactly correct. That everything about it instead is like, come on in and play. We've built this large playground called the volume, and there's going to be some weird suns behind you, and then we're going to play,
Yes.
It's worked so well. Hey, Jen, you mentioned Carl Weathers. It's like now we almost just take it for granted. He's a part of Grief Karga now and forever, and he's part of the show and directing. what a big chance that they took on him, even though he's probably like, yeah, why aren't more people taking chances on me right now? I got a lot to do here. And then even that we were talking in the Art of Mandalorian book, Joseph and I did that Star Wars Rank this weekend. There's a quote from Favreau, like, I knew he was a director. Let him go do his thing on this particular episode, and he killed it. He's going to be directing again. That's one of the things I think I do love these shows so far, and we'll see if it continues with Kenobi or Andor, if it's just a Team Favreau thing. I don't know. But it's been a lot of fun. And Christopher Lloyd's on the list. Do you both have any names that pop up kind of immediately? We didn't really prep for this, but any names that pop up, or you're like, sure, why not? Let's do it.
Oh, to put people in? Yeah. I mean, this is my answer for a ton of things, but Peter Capaldi, who played the 12th Doctor, he's got such just weight and intensity. He plays lots of different characters. He was just in the Suicide Squad movie, but I want to see him in pretty much everything because he's got that mix of great comedy, and then he can just look at any character and you just feel the weight of like, this man has been alive and he's seen things.
Yeah.
And I like that mood.
I love that. That's a great choice, Jen.
Yeah. I just finished watching The After Party on Apple Plus. And obviously Ben Schwartz is great, but his Sam Richardson, he was in that movie with Chris Pratt.
Yeah. He's great. He was in Veep.
Oh, and he was in Veep. I didn't know that.
Series
I'm looking at his IMDb. Yes.
And I once drunkenly accosted him at a wedding.
No, really?
he was my friend Josh McCougo and Amanda got married. And I officiated the wedding. He was there, and after 5 drinks in, walk up and I was like, "Hey, being crazy, just love you in the office." And we took a photo, and he was wonderful. Yes, he's super talented. He's so great,
so good, so funny. But he can also go to the depth. You know what I mean? Oh, I'd love to see him. I want to see him everywhere. Although now I should go back and watch Veep. I've only seen a little bit of Veep.
Oh God, yeah, that's a different conversation. When he shows up, it's something special. Something special.
How about you, Ken?
You know what? It's funny. I was trying to think. You could go in so many different directions and everything. And I was trying to think, well, who's big in like my own mind? Who's someone that I loved and cherished and was part of my pop culture discussion for so long, and then kind of isn't for various different reasons, even though he's still out there doing things successful. I don't know if this would work, but I don't know if any of these castings would have worked if you'd told me before. I want to put Dana Carvey in Star Wars. my early 90s SNL high school Ken really wants to see Dana Carvey in Star Wars.
Oh, yes. As the church lady would say, that would be very special. Yes.
And then, and I know this is very close to your heart too, Joseph. I would love to see some old MST3K people. I mean, you imagine Joel Hodgson in Star Wars?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, there's so many wonderful people involved with that who would be amazing. Yeah. Get my own friend Bill Corbett in Star Wars.
Exactly. Well, we're just spitballing, having fun with these castings, but we'll see what Christopher Lloyd does in the show. Like I said, that could be a voice, could be this, could be everything. We will find out. We'll let you know on any more casting updates. Indeed. We're going to take a quick break. Before we do, we're going to do that audiobook recommendation for you now. Our ForceCenter recommends. Joseph, what do we have?
We are recommending the next High Republic adventure. It is called Mission to Disaster. It is by Justina Ireland, and we're looking forward to diving in.
We're going to dive in soon. Download your free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. All right, quick break. When we come back, more news here on ForceCenter. Welcome back to ForceCenter, one of the big shows, one of the main shows, one of the superstar stories of our fleet, one of the Ewok villages in our community, the Ewoks. Jen, how many other villages do you know? Bright Tree Village, and then how many other competing villages are there on it?
I don't know. Oh my gosh, it's something that I've surprisingly not ever really thought about until right now.
I have that daydream of a story called The Rise of Chirpa and him uniting villages or something like that.
Yeah, I want to see the controversial moment where Wicket moves to Dark Bark Village.
Exactly. I'm out of here. Like goes off to college. It's the college years. It's a spin-off.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's amazing. All right. We are going to look at some more Star Wars news here. And George Lucas and Kathleen Kennedy accepted their PGA awards. We had reported on this earlier when it was first announced. But this past weekend on a ceremony that was delayed a few days because of a few weeks, actually, because of COVID, Steven Spielberg presented Kennedy and Lucas their PGA Milestone Awards at the 33rd Annual Producers Guild Awards. And he pointed out, among other things, many things that he said, but he pointed out this one that I thought was great. They have 175 projects between them, whether solo, collaborative, or just things they've worked on. That's you try getting 175 projects up in this town. So when this was first announced, we discussed their legacy. So I was going to focus on some specifics, but then I realized, Jen, we haven't really talked about your thoughts on George and Kathleen Kennedy, their legacy and their lives. You're part of that Amblin generation too. Spielberg, of course, that comes from his company. But any thoughts on what those names mean to you in your life? Big question.
I mean, they are the movie business. They're the reason why I wanted to get involved in the movie business. And Kathleen Kennedy, for me, it was exciting to know, there are women behind the scenes who are doing, and she, some of the most legendary, high profile films, right? Most iconic films that she's had a hand in. And it's just, I just can't even put into words how they have changed not only cinema, but our pop culture. And we'll get into that. But, what an achievement. And 175 projects. I can't, I'm just like, that's a lot of work. That is a lot of wheeling and dealing. It is not easy to get funding, to pitch your ideas. And especially George, who is an artist at heart, right? It just is, it's so impressive. I have no jokes, just all admiration.
No. Yeah, no. I mean, it is an amazing career, both of them. And, and Kathleen Kennedy taking a lot of slings and arrows and just going, I'm fine. I'm making things. Let's go.
Yeah. There were some great shots of this event you saw going around the internet this week of like all of them at that table. Favreau kind of there, some other folks. I just loved seeing it. And George looks just as uncomfortable as any of us would be at a forced dinner. And sitting there. Like I said, we're going to talk about some of the specifics since we did discuss the legacy in more detail previously. Kennedy talked about working alongside George during many different revolutions in the industry, kind of, in line with what Jennifer was saying about their legacy. And it's also just not in how movies are made or received, but as she said, the composition of our business. She went on to say this: as women, artists of color, LGBTQ, and differently labeled artists and producers who have fought for and won a place at the table, propelling our community toward a more inclusive, diverse, richer, more sophisticated, and nuanced sense of our responsibilities for social, racial, and economic justice. So I wanted to focus on those words, if you wouldn't mind, Joseph and Jennifer, because these are great words and they're important goals and they're ongoing. But Star Wars, I think we need to be honest, like many brands, and definitely individuals, has maybe struggled to hit all the right notes in this song of change. I think it's important you're singing the song, but sometimes the notes can be a little off. I'm reminded of the need for the Blackout Star Wars Eclipse campaign. That comes to mind. The in-stories issues like the Tusken Raider and Tuskens of the Dune Sea controversy in the Book of Boba Fett, which both had great storytelling and maybe didn't end in the best way for many people. And it was a good discussion point, at least. So I want to ask you guys this. It is a big question. It's a tough question. But what do we want to see from Lucasfilm / Star Wars and that brand going forward to keep in line with this quote from Kathleen, which, again, I do like these words. But what do we want from them, Joseph?
You know what? Since we're talking diversity, I'm going to go ahead and let Jennifer start.
Jennifer, you're up.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, this could be like, there's a lot, there's a lot, right? There's a lot to talk about. I think the biggest thing, there's two things. Number one, I see Lucasfilm and Disney as like a big ship that we're trying to steer the other direction, right? It's going to move slow. So I want to celebrate the changes that they've made and the strides that they've made, well, we can also challenge them too, because I think sometimes people only want to challenge them, but they've also done some great things that we've seen more recently. with Deborah Chow helming the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. We have Leslie Headland, who is doing Star Wars Acolyte, and she is an openly gay woman. And I think that's the key, right? Is to hire people not just on screen, but on screen is only a reality because of the people who are making it. Writers, directors, producers, creative executives, all the people, casting directors, all the people behind the scenes needs to be diversified. So it's not just one person who's speaking for, you know what I mean? Like they have one black writer. It's like, well, what do you think? How can you speak? It's like, no, you have to have a broad team. And I think that will really inform what kinds of stories get told and who is going to tell them, who the actors are on screen. But I think that there's been a lot of great things and a lot of things that they definitely need to improve. So both things can be true, I guess.
Yeah. Both things can. Joseph, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I really agree with Jennifer. I think it's great to compliment the steps that have been taken while also, criticize the missteps and ask for more steps. Mm-hmm. And I think obviously my interpretation is that Kathleen Kennedy knows that, which is why she's coming out and saying this, saying this is the journey that we're on. This isn't the, triumphant party because we did it. Right. This is the journey that we're on. And I think the big thing is, people telling their own stories and or diverse teams like the High Republic. Obviously, the High Republic team doesn't represent everybody, but the fact that that is a team of creators and there's a diversity of perspectives within that group of creators. I think sometimes when we think about Star Wars, we really think of like, who's the writer, director, producer of this one show, and I think the High Republic being a part of Star Wars as well, the publishing side, but the fact that it's a team of people with lots of different perspectives, I think is great. So I'd be happy to see more of that, but also for like on-screen things. Yeah, I think we really need, I want everyone to see themselves in Star Wars, but I think a big part of that, like Jennifer was saying, is everyone getting a chance to tell their story via Star Wars. So I think, I would love a Dr. Aphra show, and I would really want that to be, written and directed by women and Asian people, I would love more LGBTQ plus representation on screen. The publishing side has been doing introducing a lot of characters, but I think we'd all like to see more on screen. If there is more great storytelling with the Tuscans of the Dune Sea, that would be great if it was written, by Native and Indigenous people. Another one that we've talked about a lot over the years is, boy, would I love to see some on-screen stories that are really Star Wars stories that are about mothers, written and directed by mothers. So, and then I think for me, to kind of pull back and like the value of it, I think one of the things that's so great about Star Wars is it's always done a really great job of what I think myths and great writing should do, which is it speaks to the universal through the specific. And taking all of these, like, it's so weird that you can relate to the space fantasy wizards with the laser swords and the lizard bounty hunters, but we can because they are going through things that we understand and we see. And what I love about diverse storytelling is that it can celebrate what is different via the specific, but then through that you get to the universal of what is different, but what also connects us all. Yes. And Star Wars is so great with all of these big themes that truly affect everybody, that every culture, human culture has thought about, of our relationship to one another, to the mythic, to pacifism versus violence, to found family, rigidity versus organic. What does that mean? What do you value? On and on. All these great themes that are nostalgia that are baked into Star Wars. Every culture has a viewpoint on those. So to see other voices and other experiences commenting on these common themes of Star Wars is really exciting.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you both on there. And I think Joseph would agree. I'm not in the best position to say things are better. It's not something I'm here to say, but I do really like what you started us off, Jen, of a ship that's constantly going through these waters. I take Kathleen's words at face value, almost as if, Joseph, to your point of it, it might be also a continued mandate versus getting to the finish line at the end of the race type of thing. You the marathon there, it's still going. And she and they, being Lucasfilm, have taken great strides always can be better. That's I think goes without saying. But at the same time, I think maybe we need to say it to some folks. In addition to casting an even wider net to the creators, the actors, below the line staff, echoing what Jennifer and Joseph touched upon there, Ed, I would love to see Star Wars more directly deal with some of the social issues of the day in story. And I keep repeating this take on High Republic, which you mentioned, Joseph, of it being, among so many other things, the Star Wars look at what I kind of feel is like post-World War II America, turn of the century America, and the world at large. And why I think this is great value is I just don't want a retelling of like our history or, social issue storylines with just add in laser swords. But we've been talking a lot on like the Clone Wars report, which some Clone Wars episodes are just very specific to history or very specific to issues, very specific to conversations around issues. But Star Wars kind of has a chance to look at these key issues of our life as they evolve and move us forward in the best way possible. It's this idea that Star Wars is offering a look at what could be. And I think that has great value when you're having these discussions. And I know it has for me personally, someone who's changed and grown over the last few years in different ways, where just in breaking down Star Wars and seeing what's there in the stories, seeing the basic themes, the hope and the compassion, the empathy and all that kind of stuff, but seeing kind of what you were talking about, Joseph, how the value of the connections, the value of everything there that I wouldn't have seen would have been blocked by, whether it was being blocked by myself or just being blocked by bubbles and think, like-minded thinking or whatever you might say that would keep me back from looking at things in a different way. I'm rolling around in Star Wars and seeing things in a different way. I just think there's great value in that, and High Republic is hitting it out of the park in that. And I'm just talking about one aspect of it. I always talk about Eisenhower building the freeways, and now we got hyperspace routes and stuff like that, and that's just a starting point. So anyways, I would love to see that too, and just being more directly taking on some of those issues. And I do think, there's a thing of Star Wars. A lot of Star Wars is it's classic tropes for a reason, and it is it's a Star Wars play on homages to films and genres and styles, because it's so much of what George was doing. But George was also pretty specific in what he was talking about, and I think if you're not careful, I think we saw a little bit of that with Book of Boba Fett and the conversation around the Tuskens. It can really lock you into some story beats that many people just might want. They get the story beats, they just might want to move past them, or just be looking at the whole story in a different way. Then, that's a Western thing. Yep, I get it. I get where it's from, but maybe we could do something else with it. And I just think that's kind of one way to look at it, at least for me.
Yeah, I think that's some great points. And I think it's great for you to share kind of what the storytelling of Star Wars has meant to you. And it's an example of the kind of power it can have to have you still enjoy all the whiz-bang fun of Star Wars and joke around about it, but also say like, okay, well, what are the ideas? How does that possibly relate to me or my life or, the situation of the world right now?
Yep. Yeah, I think that's part of the great value. And again, going back to George's point in the beginning of it all here, I'd like to tell a story to 12-year-olds about the Nixon White House in Vietnam. So, right. Speaking of George, he obviously spoke at this event, and there's a clip going around, and it's like one of those taken off the TV screen, but it's George kind of digging into Spielberg and Christopher Nolan in the most George Sbarro food court way of essentially, and it's them in the industry for not initially following him down the path of digital filmmaking, except for Jim Cameron. Jim Cameron did too, as George said. Technically, first of all, did you guys see that clip? We're all laughing, but you
yes,
think of that clip?
I watched it. I'm not exaggerating. I watched it 5 times in a row.
It's so good. It's like I live for that kind of George, those George moments.
George
energy. I love it.
Like, his wife, his family, someone around him was like, George, you're going to have to wear a coat and tie for this event. You're going to have to.
Yeah. And he's like, okay, but it'll be plaid. Because if you look close, it's a dark blue plaid. He's like, I'm not giving up the plaid though.
Can I wear my white sneakers? Yes, you can. But just, so he had that energy. It's great. It's great. And Spielberg kind of laughs it off, but this is part of what George has done. And technological advances are always a celebrated part of Star Wars' history. I really think so. But they have they've always been a focus for George. Almost like he's more proud about that than Star Wars itself. Right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It has that energy. And so I want to ask us as fans of George and most Star Wars fans are, put quotations on most. There's some who might still have some issues, despite what people forget about the prequel era and whatnot. But as fans of George, who grown up with the Star Wars franchise, have you found a change in your own celebration and knowledge of the tech side of him and the franchise more than, or maybe on the same level as the story side, Jennifer?
Oh, I mean, that to me, this is what makes him our modern day Mozart or Picasso. I mean, he is an absolute genius. Like I said, he changed the movie business and toy making, right? He pioneered this medium. And as he acknowledged, he had people to help him, obviously very talented people to help his vision come to life. But I go back to the Revenge of the Sith behind the scenes stuff, and you see how shooting on digital allowed them, they would be shooting the scene, then they'd take the tape, and the editors would start doing a rough cut the same day that they're shooting the scenes. I mean, that it allowed him to make the movies that he wanted to make faster, really. It's incredible. And I was telling my husband before this, I was like, I really want to dive in to that more and looking at the history and get into the weeds of it. Cause I know that's what excites George. And if it excites George, then it excites me. He's such a fascinating man, and gosh,
and he's entertaining.
Yes, he's entertaining.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I celebrate his innovations, because they do have just as big of an impact on the history of storytelling and film and television as the actual narrative of Star Wars, right? And I think I think he's proud of Star Wars, but I think he's maybe just kind of rattles the saber sometimes too, of like, I know I'm not just a Star Wars guy. I did make it up. I did do it. I'm proud of it. But also like, hey, you know how you watch almost every film? Almost every film says THX or Skywalker Sound or ILM. I'm exaggerating a little bit with every, but many, especially blockbusters, right? And even the companies that aren't ILM, right, are like ILM paved the way that is a kind of company that you could be in a service that is needed, right, in storytelling. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's huge. I think this whole video is fascinating because we're kind of joking and laughing. Lucas really does remind me of that family member that you invite to a party or a family function with the full knowledge that he's going to say some wild, disruptive bleep, like you can invite him. You can invite him to whatever, but we could invite him to the 7-year-old's birthday party, but he's going to say some stuff, right? I mean, you can't contain him. He's almost going to be like, you expect me to stay within these lines, so I'm not going to because you expect that of me, that sense of being rebellious, but also like within that, Ken, to get back to your actual technology question, I think there is this actual legitimate tension with him where he feels like he's being celebrated and still looked down on at the same time. And I think that's what's eating at him as he's sitting there at that table with his good friends and he's being celebrated, right? And this happened to him with Star Wars, that everyone loves it. It's one of the most popular things ever. It changed the world, but also everyone wants to tell him, George Lucas, how he screwed it up.
Right.
Yeah.
And now that he left, everyone wants to say, there was never any problem. We loved you. Come back. So he's stuck in this place of tension of like, you love me and yet you look down on me, or there's always like George Lucas, greatest ever. But,
right.
And I think he's at this ceremony getting an award, surrounded by these other filmmakers that he's being said like, yes, you are on the same level as all of these greats. And he's like, yeah, but they all make fun of me. Because they think for this part, for the technological part, they think I'm less than,
Yeah.
Right.
And he's literally saying that, right? He's like Spielberg, Marty, Christopher Nolan. They're all like, digital. That's not movies. That's something else. Like, it's not subtle. That's literally what he's saying of like, you've invited me here to give me an award, but I'm calling you out because you also kind of think that I'm not deserving of it,
I made my silly little space movies,
Yeah.
Mm.
So I think that's fascinating. The final thing for me that I wanted to focus on is I did like that he said the quote, I wanted to make it easier to make movies and to bring my ideas in my head to life. And ultimately, to me, that's what matters the most is, digital cinema has created much more access to storytelling. Obviously, there's the super high end digital effects, but then there's just the like, you can make a movie with an iPhone, right?
Yep. It's democratized it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is where some of the like frustration comes from of like that Lucas, I think, sees himself a little bit is the like, I'm just a guy. I just want to go out there and tell my stories. Right. And I want everybody to be able to go out there and tell their stories.
There's almost like an elitist kind of thing, and not like elitist in that way, but kinda. He wants to make it accessible for everyone.
Yeah, I think he's got that tension about his own storytelling. It's what makes, I think, Star Wars and him endlessly fascinating. Is for one moment in an interview, he'll want to tell you like the actual power of Star Wars is this deep mythology, decades of storytelling that I managed to convey in this great. And he'll kind of talk about the lofty side of Star Wars, and then he'll always undercut himself, right? And like, but I like it best when they hit each other with laser swords. Like there's always that tension that I think he wants to celebrate the great accomplishments, but also wants to stay to this sort of every person perspective at the same time.
Great stuff there. Yeah, having not sat down and had that conversation with George, but I think you're touching on something there, Joseph, that, Star Wars comes and just changes everything, to Jen's point earlier with some of the movies of just like almost creating pop culture. Out of the things before that, did Spielberg have stuff out there? Jaws, Close Encounters? Yeah. But Star Wars kind of lays the groundwork for modern pop culture. Yeah. And not a lot of other things after Return of the Jedi that he tried to do seemed to work. Not counting the prequel conversation, but stuff that he was involved in, made some marks, but it's like Willow, Howard the Duck, what's the Radioland Murders with Brian Benben, Red Tails, which came a lot later, but it's like Spielberg's doing that. And Spielberg, this isn't a bash on Spielberg thing. I love his stuff too, but it's like Nolan saves the comic book movies with Dark Knight, and Lucas is over here like you said, Joseph, like, whatever. I changed how everything's made. I guess that mean, I don't know. I didn't mean anything. And he sometimes has that energy. There's some moments with Paul McCartney, and Paul McCartney's it's a whole different story, but there's some moments. I love some of these interviews, and he had them about 10, 15 years ago where he was like, hey, I actually started to do the avant-garde stuff before John. It just became the narrative that John was the artsy one and I was the love songs guy. Time out. And there's obviously a lot more to those stories and a lot more to the Beatle history. But I loved when McCartney was like, hey. And I think George maybe had that moment too of like, I just changed how filmmaking, whatever. I guess you keep winning your Oscars, Stephen. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And I love that. And one of the things I love about just focusing on to answering my own question here, I think George will always be a storyteller first to me, but I just no longer lost on me. The advances in filmmaking was not a happy accident. And it comes from this energy of, I just wanted to tell my stories. So I had to kind of create how to tell them. And that includes finding people out there who wanted to create the how with him, and in many cases for him or alongside him. And I love that kind of creative energy too, where it's like things I wanted to do didn't exist. So I created it. And then that leads to some of the things you're both talking about. If now you can shoot on an iPhone, whether it's direct and everything, you got, what I mean? It's that spirit of it that everyone can do this. Because going back to look at Empire Dreams, when the documentary starts, George is like, so the studio system was in place. That wasn't good. It was collapsing. So, I wanted to move beyond that and make movies about myself. So I love that. And I celebrate that a lot more than I ever did growing up with George.
Yeah. I also think like with everything we're saying with the tension and with Spielberg, it is fun that clearly they are friends and they are joking with each other, right? Yeah. Even if they have an honest disagreement, they're also joking about it. I love that. He's like, "Where's Steven? I'm gonna, it's like a roast. I'm gonna rib him about not liking digital." And Steven Spielberg doing the film crank gesture back at him of actually cranking the film is hilarious. So it is great that there is clearly still like that is an actual friendship, even though maybe there is this disagreement about technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. Well, they both deserve these milestone awards as producers, and I love there was conversations about defining what a producer actually is for them, and it was a fun little clip to watch. So if you guys haven't taken it in out there, go ahead and listen. And that is our look at Star Wars news this week. As always, little stories out there little rumors, tidbits, some scoops. Be careful if you don't want any spoilers. There's some scoopy spoilers going around with Mandalorian, so be careful of that. Before we close the show, we're going to do our In Star Wars History segment, looking ahead to Star Wars past, some anniversaries coming up this week. One that I found really interesting, especially on the week we're talking about Christopher Lloyd. We are certainly in Kenobi season, and this week we have a fun anniversary on March 25th, 1976. Oh, I was just under a month away from popping up into the world here and saying hi. Variety magazine reported that Sir Alec Guinness was cast in an upcoming space fantasy called Star Wars. Guinness's role was described as a bearded old desert rat who was once a leading general in galactic wars. Not wrong, not wrong. We talk often about how Guinness's performance helped build so much of the Kenobi character we love. So I wanted to talk with you both here. What are some of your favorite Sir Alec Guinness moments that help make this crazy old space wizard such an important part of Star Wars? Joseph, we definitely have to end with you because this is Kenobi season is Joseph's season as well. Jen, do you have any moments with Sir Alec Guinness?
Yeah, I mean, the hello there, of course, it sets the tone for who this character is. It's very disarming, very kind, and like the way his tone to, R2, it's like treating R2 like he's a child, and he grounds the film. And from that point on, like, the scene in the cantina when they meet up with Han, there's so much happening that he's doing he's very still, but you see his eyes like dart around, like there's danger, there's a sense of urgency while still maintaining that calm, that strength. It's just, I mean, what a treat that they got him for the film, because he really does. He brings class. He brings his acting chops to this little space fantasy film.
Those are so many good words in there, Jennifer. Disarming. That's so disarming, and you're so right about the eyes darting. That little acting choice gives so much tension to the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love that there. For me, I was watching some of the moments again this morning. I kind of love Return of the Jedi Kenobi, old sitting Force Ghost Kenobi, just delivering the hard news, not really apologizing, but possibly on the cusp of another failure. But he's just really, the whole certain point of view conversation, which is so interesting. I love kind of things about it there. Is he like, I would love to hear your analysis on beat by beat, Joseph, but just like, how much is he playing with Luke? Like, well, I guess the Empire and the Emperor have already won, whatever, that kind of reverse psychology. I love the energy there. But what my specific moment, I've always loved it. I know we discussed it before, and it could be on your list too, Joseph, but I just love the should I have from A New Hope in the Cantina. It's one of the key Kenobi moments for me because he needs to get off world. He's not finding a lot of takers. We're looking at you, Boshak, and he's still kind of controlling the conversation with Solo, saying things to kind of get Solo to show who he is, both the good and bad sides about why he might be the guy and what I need to be aware of when I'm riding with this guy. And then the bonus to it is after Han takes the bait, it's like, rah, 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 rah. I really shipped the run, the Kessel run in 12 parsecs. There's just a bonus look on Guinness's face that has no words. He just is kind of like, well, all right, cool. I didn't know anything about your ship, man. Like, I just love the energy, and it's just a lot of that sassy side of Kenobi that James Arnold Taylor picked up on so well in the Clone Wars animated series. It's just been a part of the character, especially in the prequels and soon to be in this show. So, should I have is my Kenobi moment.
Yeah, that is an absolutely great pick. I love that you pulled this out, Ken. I love knowing that in the Twin Sons episode of Rebels, when Maul calls Kenobi a rat in the desert, he is quoting Variety from 1976 in his description. Right. Now I want to see a Photoshop of Maul actually reading that edition of Variety. A bearded rat in the desert. Once a leading general in galactic wars. Look at you now.
That's great.
Essentially it. I mean, that March 25th, they were right. They were
They were dead right. Yeah, I mean, you guys have both really touched on a lot of it. I think that it is absolutely that sly humor that adds to just sort of the power of the film. Especially in New Hope, it's so fast and fun for the time. But he grounds it not only with like the weight of the performance, but also just the sort of wry humor, the older perspective, the should I have. I love when Luke's kind of trying to tell him about, there's some kind of mission, and he's like, I seem to have found it.
Mm.
Right. He's so calm and confident. So there's that wry humor. But I think maybe for me in A New Hope, the biggest thing might be the sense of mystery. We always talk about tip of iceberg storytelling in Star Wars, particularly in A New Hope, where it just gives you a peek of this vast galaxy with this vast history. And I think it's one of the things that so intrigued people of wanting to know more and making up adventures with action figures. And a lot of that is on Alec Guinness and his performance as Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? You get the sense that there is so much history and feelings and secrets to this old man, this old warrior and wizard, this mentor. He knows so much, and he is only just barely hinting at the tip of the iceberg of what he knows and we don't yet know, right? And that the younger characters don't know. I mean, like the weight of a name I've not heard in a long time, the drop of the Clone Wars, even the, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine me. Like, obviously, he's talking about becoming a Force spirit, but fans to this day debate that, right? Of like, what exactly does he mean? Why is he taunting Vader with that? Is that really powerful? Like, even that phrase is this great, like, I have opinions about what it means, but I think for a lot of fans, it's still a point of discussion and mystery. And how does he know that? What does he know? It's just the weight of the mystery, I think, that he conveys so much with the little looks that you guys have described and represents that tip of the iceberg feeling that drew us all in.
Love it. Yeah. There's the space between. I'm not quoting the Dave Matthews song. It's just the space between the moments and the beats and a true actor, a sir for a reason. That just so great, and love that he's our Kenobi and set the standard.
Yeah.
So a fun look back that's coming up here at the end of the week, March 25th, 1976. That is the end of our show here, our Star Wars news show. Always a lot of fun. We're going to let you know where you can find us. We're on Twitter at ForceCenter Pod. We're on Instagram and YouTube as well. Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. We're available on a lot of podcast spots, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn. Just search and find us. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. Get your shirts before you head to Star Wars Celebration. Yeah, that way we can point at you from across the room and give you a thumbs up. All right, thumbs up guaranteed. You can support us directly at patreon.com/ForceCenter. From there, you get into our Discord server, among other things, including our bonus monthly show, Will of the Force. But in that Discord server, you find a good place to discuss Star Wars, all sides of it, with some Force Center friends. You can follow me at Ken Napzok. Go to my website, kennapzok.com. Get information up there on an upcoming show all the way in June. June 4th, will be at the Troubadour doing comedy at that venerable music establishment. Going to be a lot of fun. Information on my website. We always like to highlight charity spots, locations, causes, things close to our heart. This week, I'm highlighting the GoFundMe for the Kyiv Independent. This is my personal decision. You can look at it if you want. This is where I've been getting the most consistent and trusted news on the ground of what's actually happening out there, which is pretty valuable when you consider what's going on in Russia, where a lot of news just being blocked, misinformation put out there. So you can go to their GoFundMe, GoFundMe.com/F/Kyiv Independent-launch, or just search for it on their Twitter page. And that's my choice this week. Joseph, what do you got?
Yeah, you can find me Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is at Joseph Scrimshaw, and you can check out all of my other comedy adventures, past and present and future, I'm sure, at some point. The future happens at some point. All on my website, josephscrimshaw.com. I'm going to continue to highlight the organization Vote Forward. This is an organization that allows you to print out letters and then add your personal reasons why you vote, why you think it's important. And then these letters are sent to voters to encourage them to vote. They've done studies. This works to increase the turnout. I do not think that voting solves everything, but I think it is a thing that is in our power that does make a huge, huge difference on every level. So if you're interested in writing some letters, you can check it out at Vote Forward. That's votefwd.org.
Jennifer.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Jennifer Landa, and my TikTok, which I have more videos coming soon, at Jennifer Landa 1138. And today I am spotlighting the World Central Kitchen, which is a nonprofit that was founded by Chef Jose Andres. They provide meals in the wake of natural disasters, and right now they've opened a kitchen and food supply depot in Poland, right on the border of Ukraine. They're serving hot soups and other dishes 24/7 at 8 border crossings, and you can find out more about their work at wck.org.
Great stuff. Great stuff from both of you there. Thank you all for listening. We love covering the news, looking back, and just sharing our love of Star Wars. And we're so happy to have you all here on the command deck with us. So that is it. So for Christopher Lloyd and all the possible characters he'll be played in The Mandalorian, we'll see you next week. This was ForceCenter.